And with another episode of On the Mark with Denmark, as you can see, I'm Dylan Denmark alongside Leon Searcy. He don't need no introduction. He's a former University of Miami Football Hall of Famer, longtime Jaguar and a Pittsburgh Steelers. Leon, what's going on, man?
You doing all right?
Yes, sir. I'm doing well over here, man. So let's get straight to it. You got Miami, your Hurricanes are playing Alabama in about less than 48 hours. So Alabama's a big favorite. So tell me, what does Miami have to do to compete to make this a competitive game in the fourth quarter?
Well, being a former offensive lineman, I always believe that it starts in the trenches. Absolutely starts in the trenches. So I'm gonna be watching very carefully how Miami holds up offensively and offensive line and defensive line because that was a big stickler for Miami last year. I mean, Derek King has been a pretty steady quarterback. We've had some young weapons, but Miami interiorly, being able to protect the passer and being able to run the football has always been their downside over the last few years. So the only way Miami's going to be able to hold against Alabama is going to be their ability to run the ball effectively against their defense and their ability to protect their passer and Derek King. And also on the defensive side, being able to solidify, stop the run, and make Alabama one-dimensional. Bryce Young, he's a Heisman Trophy candidate for a guy who's never even played a down of football. You've got to put pressure on him. You've got to manipulate the coverages to make him think a little bit, and you've got to put some pressure on him. That's the only way Miami is going to win. They've got to put pressure on Bryce Young, force him to throw some interceptions, get them off the field, and don't have any penalties. And I think we've got a fighting chance. I think Miami is returning 20 of their 22 starters from last year. They're savvy offensively. The only thing that scares me a little bit, especially from last year, their inability to stop the run game. If Alabama can run the ball effectively against Miami and don't put the pressure on Bryce Young to make plays, then I think that we're going to have a tall task ahead of us. But me being a former Cane, of course, I'm going to say Miami is, in my book, Miami's going to win the game. And I'll be in Atlanta, touchdown at 6 p.m. in Atlanta, Georgia for the game.
Okay. So you mentioned Bryce Young. He's already a Heisman candidate. I know you work with Matt Hayes with 1010XL on XL Primetime. And a lot of people right now, they're not sure about Bryce Young. They're like, he hasn't played. Matt Hayes, I don't know if he's talked to you a lot. He was talking about this after you left. He said that this dude's going to be like Johnny Manziel. What have you heard about Bryce Young and what he's able to do at Alabama?
Well, I mean, all the things that I've heard about Bryce Young have been nothing but outstanding things about him. He's a young phenom at the quarterback position. They say he's poised. They say he has a huge arm, and they say he's got an outstanding IQ. Listen, if any time I wanted Miami to play Alabama, it would probably be right now, early in the season. Maybe we can force him into a couple of mistakes, a couple of errors, a couple of turnovers. Because I think that as he's going to get better as he progresses throughout the season, because that's what Nick Saban does. He takes the young phenoms who haven't played in a while, and then they gradually grow into their own. So I'm hoping that we catch Bryce Young at the right time, first game in the season, first start. We can hopefully get him to make a couple of mistakes, and we can capitalize on him.
So Miami last year, they lost 3 games: North Carolina, Clemson, Oklahoma State. In those 3 games, Leon, that Miami lost to, they were outscored in the first quarter 49-3. So take me back to your playing days. You've played in plenty of them. Just take me. So I was watching the 1989 Notre Dame game that you played in, and that place was rocking. Notre Dame was number 1 in the country. It was the last game of the regular season. How much of an emphasis was it, or was there any, to jump on the other team early in the first quarter and set the tone?
How much now? Well, it's pivotal. It's pivotal. You've got to establish your groundwork in the first quarter. Unfortunately, Miami in their 3 losses, they were slow starters and always had to play catch up. And you can't have that. I mean, that's got to go on the coach's staff to be quiet. Not to have those guys motivated and all in tune to starting fast. Miami's got to start fast. They can't afford to get down early against Alabama, because then they're going to be playing catch-up. And then when you're playing catch-up, that's when you lure yourself into making mistakes, throwing passes that you shouldn't throw, trying to force the issue. So Miami's got to go toe-to-toe with Alabama for 12 rounds of boxing if they've got a shot. Because if they go out there and they start slow like they did last year, this game could be over at halftime.
And as always, this podcast brought to you by our Farm Bureau Insurance agent, BJ Ruiz. For any home, life, and auto insurance needs, go to BJ Ruiz. So let's go to the Jags real quick. They just cut a lot of their guys. They got their 53-man roster. If you're the O-line coach, protecting Trevor Lawrence is the biggest thing for the Jags this season. If you're the O-line coach, what is the one thing you will harp on to these dudes? Because a lot of these guys have played together. Norwell and Cam Robinson, Jawan Taylor. What's the one thing you're preaching this offensive line to the Jags this season?
Well, consistency. They've got to be consistent up front, because I believe when you got a guy like Trevor Lawrence, who has a rocket for an arm, I believe his arm can keep us in a lot of games if he's got the necessary protection up front. I'm not really concerned much. I think that they do an adequate job, Linder, Norwell, and Can. I'm concerned a little bit by our tackle play. Our tackle play has been depleted over the last couple of years. Cam Robinson and Jawan Taylor have actually taken steps back as far as progressing and moving forward and being a competent offensive tackle. And because I held myself to a higher standard when I played. And so I watched Cam Robinson, I watched Jawan Taylor, I watched the techniques and fundamentals, and they're flawed right now. They get beat on a lot of stuff they shouldn't get beaten by. And if I'm the offensive line coach, I'm focusing on the things that they have trouble with. They have trouble with speed. They have trouble with power and speed. And they have trouble with guys that, that are versatile, that can give them the inside and outside move. That's just feet. That's feeding fundamentals. That's technique. That's knee bend. That's being aggressive with your punch. That's your sit. Those are the type of things that you need as an offensive line, especially at the tackle position, if you're going to be an effective tackle in this league. And it's unfortunate the last couple of years, our tackle play hasn't been up to par. But hopefully when you got a guy like Trevor Lawrence and you know what you've got at the quarterback position, you'll elevate your play to make sure that he's clean on Sunday. So that's what's troubling to me right now, that our tackle play is below par. And if they don't clean it up this season, it's going to be a very long season. So hopefully they play a lot better than they played over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and when you look at the NFL, if you look at all the teams, I would say the last 4 or 5 years, the best offensive lines, if you go from the Eagles to the Rams to New England, all those years, they've always had the best offensive line. I remember, Leon, your boy, Ray Lewis, he went on an interview. This was a couple years ago, and he was talking about having, like, when Dallas had that great O-line a couple years ago when Dak and Zeke were rookies, and he was talking about how the offensive line is not able to get to the D-line, but also get to the second level and able to get that front seven. And then when you got that running back and safety, I mean, you're going to take that running back all day when you got that matchup. So how does Jacksonville, just knowing what they are right now, get to that next step? Knowing that your tackles are weak, how does Jacksonville get to the next step? Is it coaching? Is it just the talent? How do you get there?
Well, it's a combination of a lot of things. When you really look at the Jaguars, you look at the whole roster, especially offensively, a lot hasn't changed. So that's concerning to me. The same guys who were ineffective for the most part last year are the same guys up front that you have right now. So you've got to focus on fundamentals and techniques. You need about 1,000 reps a week on just footwork, knee bend, coming off the ball, being physical, getting to the second level, pushing and climbing. All those type of things factor in if you're going to elevate your game. And some of that stuff, it goes beyond coaching. I mean, when Baselli and I played, we were competitors, and we motivated each other. But the one thing we did, outside of practice is what we worked on our skill set. This is your craft. What you do for a living is your craft, and you get paid very handsomely for your craft and how effective or ineffective you are as an offensive lineman. So I feel that these young tackles, in my opinion, reason why they're struggling so mightily is that they don't have a mentor. They don't have anybody that could teach them how to be a professional at all aspects of being an offensive lineman. I had that when I went to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I had guys around me who taught me how to study, watch film, practice, lift weights, nutrition, how to be a professional, working on the little things, the footwork, the handwork, the hand-eye coordination, the attack angles, all those things I learned from mentors. And unfortunately, Juwan Taylor and Cam Robertson don't have any veteran presence within the offensive line that can effectively teach them how to be true professionals. And that's the sad part about it.
Yeah, you talk about being a professional. You wrote a lot about that in your book, Fourth Down and Damn, a Lineman's Story. There's a lot of great stories from when you were in college, why you went to Miami, when you were in Pittsburgh and Jacksonville, and then when you got into coaching at FIU later. I mean, it talks to everything from ups and downs. So what made you want to write the book?
First, I wrote the book myself. It was very therapeutical for me to kind of get all that stuff up, out in the air, because I held on to a lot of those demons within, and was really, really hard on myself for some of the miscues that I made while I played professional football. And I wanted to be a teaching lesson. I wanted it to be inspiring. I wanted it to be motivational. Because there's an alarming stat in the NFL that says that, guys that retire from the NFL, 78% of them retire broke. So that's an epidemic. So I wanted to be a telltale all story. I wanted to be a lesson learned story where someone that can read it can be inspired that there are second chances, third chances, fourth chances in life, and that you can overcome those mistakes that you made if you take ownership of them. I think the big problem I had when I retired from the NFL is that I blamed everybody else for my dilemma. And when I finally took ownership for the mistakes and the people that I chose in my life, I was able to move forward. So that's what I want people to get out of the book. The book goes into my childhood, high school days, University of Miami days, the games, the locker rooms, off the field stuff, drafted by the Steelers, Steeler days, games, Super Bowl, Jaguars, AFC title games, the opponents I went up against, off the field kind of stuff, the ups and downs, the highs and lows. And it deals with my life after football. I was very genuine about, some of the mishaps and some of the stuff and the struggles that I went through after football was over. So I just want the book to be a tell-all story about my rise, my fall, and then my rise again.
Last question for me, and I'll let you go, Leon. You tweeted, I think it was a couple weeks ago, you said you hate Notre Dame more than any other team. How is it Notre Dame and not Florida State?
Well, I had I actually posted this on Twitter. I have a hierarchy of hate, okay? And Notre Dame sits atop of it. And the reason why I say it's Notre Dame is because the perception for me as a Miami Hurricane is that Notre Dame came across like they were so much better than everybody else because they were Notre Dame. And they used the media to paint the picture that we were the so-called bad guys and thugs and hoodlums, so to say, and they were these nice, perfect choir boys who wore sweater vests to class and suitcases and never did anything wrong. And I guarantee you, Notre Dame might be they call themselves Catholics, but a lot of people tell me that some of the stuff that went on in Notre Dame was beyond was bad religion. Let me just say that. Okay, so they weren't as good as they always painted themselves out to be, and that's what stirred my coffee when I think about Notre Dame.
I got you. Leon, tell them how they can catch you on Twitter and I know you're smoking a cigar, man. I know I got your book. I promoted that. What cigars you got to promote, man?
Well, I'm a part of the Howard G brand. You can go and you can purchase my cigars are called All Pro. They're 8 1/4 cigars, 58 gauge cigars. It's about a 2-hour smoke. But I'm a part of the Howard G brand. You can go on howardg.com, and the name of my cigars are called Leon Searcy All Pros. And you can get them online at howardgcigars.com, and you can purchase Fourth Down the Dam on Amazon, and my audio books come out this Saturday for the Miami Hurricane Alabama game, and you can purchase my audio books on iTunes, Audible, and Amazon.
All right, that sounds good. I'll definitely promote it and put it all on my social media on Facebook and Twitter. Leon, thanks for the time, man, and be safe. And I'm not gonna say go Canes, but have fun at the game Saturday.
Okay.
All right, man, Leon, take care.
I'll have a great time. Win, lose, or draw, I'll have a great time.
All right, Leon, take care.